Welcome to the Savvy Surgical Technologist. I'm your host, John Budd. Welcome back, guys. So excited to have you all back. I hope that you're liking and sharing the page and subscribing if you're able to. I'm excited to talk to you guys again today because I know I haven't talked to you guys in a little while. What I had planned on doing was having my first guest on today, but I decided to scrap that plan and go in a different direction because of the holidays. It's so hard logistically to catch up to people and have them sit down and do a little interview with me. So I decided to just do another solo episode, and I'll come back. This will be my last episode. Episode 3, Angels and Demons, will be my last episode before the holidays. I'll come back after the holidays to start new and start fresh, and that's when I'll have guests on. I already have people lined up, and I'll have more time to navigate how to work this studio because, again, I'm new at all of this stuff, to get people on, to have us sit down and do these interviews that's going to be so informative and so enlightening to all those who are in and outside of healthcare. So I'm excited to do that. But for this episode, I decided to just answer a series of questions, not only from recent questions from me starting the podcast. I've been getting a couple of questions people have been asking me and sending me stuff in. So if you ever want to send me a question, if you ever want to get anything answered, you can either call me or text me on 267-246-9480, or you can email me at John, John, Blaze, Blaze. The number is 1111 at iCloud.com. All right. So with that being said, so what I wanted to do is we're going to go back in time. We're going to be jumping around a little bit because of the questions or whatever, but I'm excited to talk to you about it. I'm excited to answer these questions for people and to try to shine a little bit of light on what went on in my life and how I got into healthcare and things like that. So the very first question was, what was the most exhilarating thing that ever happened to me, or the most exciting thing that I experienced inside of healthcare during my career? And, that's a great question. Great question, because I've been scrubbing for 18 years, 19 years now, but I've been in healthcare all of my adult life. I started out in the restaurant business, and then, like I told you guys last week, how I got into healthcare after I came home from prison. And I have so many great memories and stuff, but one of the most exciting things that I've ever experienced was I was on the surgical field. I was at Yale University. Shout out to everybody at Yale University. I love you guys. Christine Thomas Niggs, Kimberly DeMaio, Ann Turner, Boffin, so many people, Liz, so many people that I met there. And if I didn't mention your name, don't take it personal, but I love you all. I miss Yale. I need to come back there in the summer. I was always there in the winter. But anyway, the most exciting thing that I experienced in my healthcare career happened at Yale University Hospital in New Haven, Connecticut. So we were doing a case. We were doing a procurement. That's a procurement is a case where you are preparing, a patient is passing away, so you're taking all of their goods, all of the things that someone else can use. I hate to call it goods, but anyway, so we were taking their eyes, their skin, liver, kidneys, and heart. And I'll never forget how exciting it was, because one of the patients that was receiving, I think he was receiving the heart, was in another operating room being prepped for that heart to come out of him, out of the patient that was passing away, to go right into the next room to be placed into the recipient. And that in itself is exciting. So healthcare is so exciting. Surgery is so exciting. So many cutting edge things, and I've been fortunate enough to be involved in so many things. But this particular day was just epic for me, because what happened is when we finally took the heart, I believe we was taking the heart last. I'm not really sure. I don't remember how the case went, but I know that when the guy, the surgeon, he had cut the heart out, he removed the heart, and I'll never forget this for as long as I live. He placed the heart in my hand. He said, "Here you go, John. Here's the heart. Be careful with it." And he gave it to me, and I held it in my hand, and the heart was still beating. The heart was still beating. Like, we dissected it out of the body. He put it in my hand, and it beat for a couple of times before it stopped. And I found that to be so amazing, and just another sign that we live on after physical death. And that moment was so powerful for me, not only because I got to experience that, not only because I got to hold the heart, not only because I was in such a integral case and a life altering case for the patient that was going to receive that heart, but because it just showed me that I belonged, that I was in the right place, that I made the right choices, that somehow, some way, I had got through all the bad things. And again, when I was at Yale, I was still struggling with mental health and stuff like that because, I've told you guys that was a lifelong thing for me back then and during those times. So that time when that happened, it just gave me so much hope and inspired me so much. And I'm never going to forget that, and I'm never going to forget how it made me feel. Um, so whatever you guys are doing in life, if you find something, no matter what the job is, try to find something to hold on to make you feel good about being there because you're there at that moment in those times for a reason. Okay. So on the flip side of that, the next question was on what was the worst experience and the most difficult thing I had to go through in my career as a surgical tech or as a whole healthcare professional. And I'm gonna have to take you guys way, way back because I wasn't even a scrub tech at this time. I was an OB tech at Abington Memorial Hospital. Shout out to Abington. You know how I feel about you guys. Love Abington. They again changed the trajectory of my life. Was so impactful and all the experiences that I have today because they the ones who set me up for the things that I go through and the things, the experiences like what I've experienced at Yale is because Abington seen enough in me to send me to school to become a scrub tech, and the rest is history. But of course, in future podcasts, I'll take you guys down the road to talk about more about Abington and how special that place is to me. But the most horrific thing and the most upsetting and um, life altering, something that I'm gonna remember for the rest of my life happened at Abington. So I'm gonna give you guys stats as we go and as this podcast grow. I'm always gonna try to back up some of the things I say with numbers. So Black women are 3 times more likely to die in health and childbirth than any other demographic. And if I'm wrong about that, please correct me and send me the information, the correct information, so I could pass it on to you guys. But statistically speaking, I believe that Black women are 3 times more likely to die in childbirth. So this particular day, I was on labor and delivery where I worked at. I was an OB tech, which is like a nurse aide for OB. They used to call me the delivery man, and I'll tell you guys about that story, some more about that in future podcasts. But on this day, the lady, I'll never forget it. She was in room 2. And I remember coming into the room, and it was chaos in the room. I was already in other rooms, and I came into the room, and the lady, I remember standing at the bottom of the bed, and I was looking at her, and I seen the life draining out of her. Now, from what I understand, she was told that she shouldn't ever have babies again because she survived, I think, another baby years before that. And this, her oldest child was probably like 13, 14 years old at that time. But she had just recently gotten married, and her husband didn't have any children. So he wanted to have babies. So she decided to have a baby for him. And I still never forget how I was at the bottom of that bed and I was looking at her and I seen the life draining out of her face and out of her eyes. And we were calling codes and we were trying to save her life. And she ended up in a C-section room. And again, I was back there assisting, running and getting things and stuff like that. And the image still stands in my mind. I'm like, I could see it right now where I could literally watch her spirit leaving. And we kept bringing it back and kept bringing her back. And eventually we lost her and she died. And I remember how very upset and how sad and the room was. There's this myth that, and I'm sure it happens, so I don't want to say it's a myth, but there's this conception out there that people don't care when African Americans die on the surgical field or die in healthcare, and that's just not true. From my experiences, I'm sure again that it happens, but this particular day, the whole room, and it was basically all white people in the room with me. Abington is a suburb of Philadelphia, so it was a predominantly white hospital, especially back then. More so, not so much so that nowadays, but I could see the grief and the sadness in the room. It was overwhelming. But the worst part was not that she died, but the baby died also. The baby, mom and baby, both passed away. And I'll never forget this as long as I live on this earth because I still hear it. So somebody must have went out the room to tell the dad. Now, I can't really describe how, well, I can try to describe to you how the C-section rooms are at Abington. So there's cores. There's a box. Abington is like a box that goes all the way around. And inside the box is the C-section rooms. And outside of those rooms are triage and then the rooms, and it goes all the way around. So the patient was originally, the patient was in room 2. So when you go out the C-section room, you walk out, go through the pods, and you go down and to make a right to get to room 2, which is a little ways from the C-section room, not as far as room 12 and stuff like that, but far enough. So I say all that to say because somebody must have told the dad what had happened because he screamed so loud. It literally shook the walls and I could hear it in the C-section room. He was screaming and screaming and screaming. And when I came out the room, he was laying on the, God, I get so emotional nowadays. And it's just crazy, but whew, I still remember it. He was laying on the floor and he was just screaming and crying. And he blamed himself because he wanted a baby. Just a very tragic situation. Love is a funny thing because we try to give the people we love the things that they want, even at the detriment of ourselves. This lady lost her life. The baby lost his life because she loved this man so much that she wanted to provide him with something that he didn't have. Tragedies happen all the time in healthcare, man. And so a lot of times when you see us, when you see people in healthcare, you see us walking through and we have blank looks and all that stuff. And the thing is, like, recently I had something happen at Rady's that was a tragedy, and it happened in the beginning of my shift, and it hurt me so much when I was told, but I couldn't do anything about it because we had to compartmentalize because we had another patient on the table, and we had to take care of that patient, which was a trauma also. So it really impacted me. But we are in healthcare, especially in situations like labor and delivery and the surgical suites. If we lose people, we have to go on to the next patient. We can't always mourn. We can't do the things that normal people do. So a lot of us suffer through healthcare, mental health things because of some of the things and the tragedies that we see and that we experience along the way in life. So, give some grace to the people that you see in healthcare. Give some grace to the ones you think is mean or whatever, because sometimes it's deeper than just being mean. All right. So that was my tragedy, and that's something that's going to sit with me and be with me for the rest of my life. I'm never going to forget that scream. I'm never going to forget that man rolling around on the floor like that. It's always going to be impactful. And every time I see a good experience, and every time I see somebody after that, especially when I was still on labor and delivery, when I see them have a successful delivery, it always brings a little joy to my life. It always brings me a little happiness because I understand that it can always go bad. It can always go the other way. So the third question is, so many people, this lady, she said, she is inspired by my story, but she was wondering how did I even land a job in healthcare while being a convicted felon? And that's an awesome question and a timely question. Again, let's go back a little bit. I didn't expect to be in healthcare. When I was interviewed for the position, at osteopathic and then later on at Abington, which I spent most of the bulk of my career at Abington, I didn't think that I would get by the background check. But remember this, guys. Timing in life is everything. Timing in life is everything. So when you I say that to say that if something is going wrong for you right now, don't worry about it. Something better is coming for you. So at the time that I was interviewing for these positions, I was convicted in Virginia. I was interviewing for jobs in Pennsylvania. At that time, they didn't do a national background check. So when they did my Pennsylvania check, I didn't have a record in Pennsylvania. I had no record in Pennsylvania. Now, with that being said, let me back up. So I didn't have a record in Pennsylvania. So when they checked the records, it came out clean. So I got the positions. Years later, I was still working at Abington. They had started healthcare started administering FBI background checks yearly. They do it every year now for most places up throughout America. So I was called in and I was told that I needed to do to go get my fingerprints to do an FBI background check. And I knew that I had a record in Virginia. And again, the record never came up. So I knew I had a record in Virginia. And I knew that it was going to come up because I had to do the FBI background check. So I went and did the FBI background check. So they're required by law to send me a copy and then back then I would have to send Abington or whatever hospital I would be working at, I would have to send them a copy. Now I think both we get a copy and the hospital get a copy. But anyway, I got my copy, and on the very front page it says either you have a record, but you are eligible to work in healthcare, or you have a record, or you don't have a record and you're eligible to work, or you have a record and you're not eligible to work in healthcare because you have violent felonies. Here's the caveat. I got my record. I took it to Abington, and it never was brought up again. And every job I've had since have been, it's never been brought up. It's never been an issue because I was a nonviolent felon. My crimes were hustling. I was like I told you guys, I always make money. To this day, I make money. Shit. My phone be ringing. I be making money. I hear it all the time, and I just laugh because sometimes I'm sleeping. I can hear my phone ringing that I got something through Cash App, or I got something through my store Wix, through my Wix account, through Sheila's House of Style. So I'm always making money even when I'm asleep. But I was convicted for felony drug charges. So it was never brought up. So what I wanted the message I want to say to you guys that is if you have nonviolent felonies, or if you have crimes that are not like there are misdemeanors and stuff, you have an opportunity to apply for healthcare positions. Now, granted, once you get, it's not enough to pass background checks. You have to be somebody that they want to hire. So when you go to the interviews, be presentable, be enthusiastic, do the things that are required of you to land a position. So one of my favorite sayings is, I'm gonna get the job, and then I'm gonna ask for the most money. Then I'm gonna go there and I'm gonna make them feel like they got a bargain. And I said that for years as a traveler, and I've never failed to do that for the most part. A couple of jobs that I couldn't stand and they couldn't stand me, and I left and whatever. But for the most part, my name still ring bells in almost every hospital I went to. Not because I'm such a great scrub tech or anything like that. I feel like I'm a very good scrub tech, and I'm always trying to get better. I never settle. But I also wanted to always be a good teammate. No matter where I ever been, I always try to be a good teammate. And when I fell short, I would always go and apologize. I had situations where the surgeon could be cussing somebody out, and I'll jump and take that bullet for them because I didn't want them to go through that. And I can handle surgeons more than some people, especially some of the nurses or whatever who are who go through a lot, especially the younger nurses. They don't know how to navigate those situations as well as I do. But so my message to you throughout that is, if you have felonies, the felonies aren't a deal breaker. If they're violent felonies, that's a little bit different. I don't know that you can get a job inside of healthcare if you have violent felonies on your jacket. But if you have nonviolent felonies on your jacket, then you probably can be hired. But again, when somebody give you an opportunity, go out there and make the best of it. And as I did, even through all my traumas, even through all my mental stuff, I always showed up and showed out. I'm just good at what I do, and I'm very proud of that. But okay, so my next question was, who was the most influential person in my life in healthcare, in terms of healthcare? And that's a hard question to answer, because I met, there's so many people out in the world who always say I'm self-made, that I ain't get the help. That I've never been that way. I understand that I've been helped along the way by so many people. I remember when when I first got home and I was applying for jobs, I met Charlene Algarin, and I would call her every day because I interviewed at Abington, and they weren't calling me, and this was weeks, and I was just so desperate to get a job. I was so hungry, and I would call her all the time, and she would encourage me, and I didn't even know her, and I would call her every day in human resources, and she'd say, "Johnny, you haven't talked to me yet." And shout out to Charlene, by the way, I love her. And so eventually they called me back for a second interview or whatever. So that she influenced me a lot just by encouraging. I could tell that she felt bad for me. You know what's a funny story about Charlene is that eventually Charlene became an RN, and she got hired in labor and delivery, and I trained her. Life is funny. Life is funny. So I called this girl every single day trying to get into this job. Eventually, she got the job. She moved from human resources or wherever she was at that I was calling to find out about if they were going to hire me or not. And she became an RN at Abington's Labor and Delivery. I oriented her. Full circle moment, exciting. But the most influential person, there's so many. Like I have a nurse manager at Abington, Lisa Hoover, who encouraged me to go to school. She moved my shift. She moved a lot of things around for me. To start, I would work 3 to 11, and I went to school during the day to become a scrub tech. And as soon as I finished school, they hired me. She hired me and made sure I got an opportunity, which led to me where I'm at today. But then I moved to the main OR. I transferred from Adventist labor and delivery to the main OR. And the most influential person I've ever met for my life, in terms of scrub tech and healthcare, was this lady named Sue Scheibel. Sue Scheibel, she wasn't the most popular person when I got there. A lot of people felt like she was mean and stuff like that. And I was a little intimidated by her too, but she was actually never mean to me. She just has a way about her. And I love her to this day. And she just has this demeanor about her that makes people think that she's standoffish or whatever. And if I'm saying that's wrong, Sue, forgive me. I love you. Shout out to you. But I'm just going by the memories that I had when I first initially got to the main OR at Abington. Um, but anyway, I was struggling really bad as a scrub tech. I was fumbling all over the place. I was dropping stuff. I couldn't gown and glove the surgeons in an efficient way. I just was so nervous because one thing about me is I have big energy, and I like even as during this podcast, you guys probably could see how I jump around a lot. I have a lot of energy in me, or whatever. So I would make and being on a surgical field, especially when I was new, I was just way too fast. So I would always be fumbling and I always would make mistakes and stuff like that. And I just wasn't good at what I was doing when I initially got there. So I never forget this. I had a horrible day. I was in general surgery. I think I was with Dr. Zebley. Shout out to Dr. Zebley. I hope maybe one day he can come on and talk to us about what's going on in life and colorectal surgery and stuff. But anyway, that in that moment, at the end of that day, I was walking, I was leaving to go to the locker room in the LiveFest building, and Sue came and called my name. She said, "Hey, John, can I talk to you for a minute?" And I was like, "Oh, she's gonna be mean to me." This is exactly what I was thinking. I was like, "Oh my God, I know I'm in here fucking up. I'm not good. Did I do the right thing? Should I go back to labor and delivery or whatever?" So she pulled me into this little storage closet. And I'm never going to forget this as long as I live. And I tell this to every person that I orient to this day. She looked me in the eye and said, "I like you. I like you a lot. And I want you to be successful here. I really want you to be successful here. So what I'm going to tell you is going to help you. I hope that it helps you. And I hope that you listen. You need to slow down. You need to practice your craft. You need to have more belief in yourself. Everything you do and all the mistakes you're making are because you're too fast, because you're too anxious, and you're trying too hard to impress when you should just be trying to do the job that's required of you." Basically, her exact words. What stood out to me is, "I like you. I care about you. I want you to be successful here." That took the anxiety out of the moment. That took the anxiety out of the moment. And from that moment on, I would go into my room relaxed because I understood that what I needed to do was to relax. And through the course of me learning at in the main OR at Edmonton, when I had downtime, I would go into other rooms and watch scrubs who were better than me, more experienced than me. And I would learn from them. I would take a little bit of everything I learned from them to implement it into my own game. And soon over time, with practice, with dedication, and with mindfulness, I start rising up in the ranks of scrubs. So much so where I'm really well known all over the country for what I do. You know, the other day I was telling people at Rady's that they don't really know who they have in their midst. I'm really good at this, but I'm good at it not just because I'm good on the surgical field, but I try to be a good teammate. I say that all the time, and I'm always going to say it because it's not your skills that make you good. How you treat people make you good. So she was very influential in how I came to be where I'm at today. So when I break it down into who was the most influential, there's so many influential people that I've met in my life, from people who gave me tokens to get on the bus when I had no money. I didn't have any money to even go interview for jobs. That's how bad it was for me when I got home from prison, and then I had left. It's just so many the time frames. I have to take you back through the time frames and tell you how I ended up at Edmonton, how I left osteopathic and stuff like that. But a lot of that stuff was wrapped around bad behaviors. So influential. Always try to shout out the people who influence you in your life. Don't ever forget them. So whenever I see Sue, whenever I think of Sue, I think of her with love and light. And she, even after that day, she helped me out. She's just an excellent nurse and such a great person. So again, shout out to Sue Scheibel. A lot of love and respect for you. Anybody who's at Abington and you're seeing this and you working with Sue, tell her John Buzz said hi. Um, okay. So the next question is and I saved the best for last, or the question that I've been hearing for years and years and years. I've saved it for last because what I'm going to do, this podcast is called Angels and Demons. So I basically told you all the angels that I met throughout my about how I got into healthcare, the influential people and the stuff that I saw and the powerful things that impacted me. But I also have met demons in and out of healthcare because again, healthcare is a microcosm of what goes on in real life. So when you got bad people outside, you got bad people inside. Um, I'm so grateful and very fortunate that most of the people I've ever met in this business have been good people. We are all human beings. We all have moody days. We all have bad days. We all have days where we're clash. But the last question was, how do you cope with difficult or mean surgeons in the operating room? And do they intimidate or scare you? Or have your life experiences prepared you to handle that pressure differently? Or how do I cope with that? Powerful question. Powerful question. So I've been scrubbing for 18 years, 19 years, something like that. And I think off the top of my head, I might have had 4 or 5 incidents where it went bad. And I believe the first couple of ones was because of me. It was my fault. There was a few times where they went too far because at the end of the day, I'm a grown man. You're a man, you're a woman, we're grown adults. You're not going to talk to me or speak to me in any kind of way where you think that I'm just supposed to take that shit. It's just not going to happen ever. But early on in my career, I was standoffish. So, I just said that there's all kinds of people in healthcare. So there's some surgeons I don't like. But guess what? There's a lot of surgeons that probably don't like me either. My cousin called me last week and he told me that I should talk about my personality on this podcast, how I have such an overpowering and big personality where sometimes it comes off as cocky. People feel like I'm cocky, a word that I hate because I feel like I'm more confident than cocky. Feels negative to me. But a lot of people who come across me, especially initially, I come off as cocky and hard to deal with. So I'm sure that a lot of surgeons that I've met throughout my career looked at me like, who is this fucking guy? Like, and I know that I come off like that, and one of the things that changed, and I'm gonna tell you a story about why why I'm not afraid of anybody on the surgical field. I'm gonna tell you that at the end real quick. But before that, what happened to me, what changed my perspective on how I should be treating surgeons and how I should behave on the surgical field was a argument that I got into with Samir Patel, Dr. Patel. Shout out to Dr. Samir Patel at Fox Chase Cancer Center. Love everybody at Fox Chase. It was the hardest place I ever had to work. It made me the strong scrub that I am today. I would not be as good as I am if I didn't go through Fox Chase, the most difficult and toughest place I've ever had to work at. So shout out to everybody at Fox Chase. Love you guys, miss you guys. I hope it's all is going well. But I had an incident with Samir, who I love to this day. He's a friend of mine. I could text him right now, and he would probably give me anything that I need or ask of him. He took care of my mom. My mother loved him. He had such a wonderful way about him. But we were younger. We both were younger. We both had this aura about us of confidence. I like to use the word confidence. Most people would call him cocky too, and they call me cocky. But we were in a room. We were doing a free flap, I believe. I think Jim was in the room with us. Shout out to Jim. I always like to acknowledge the people that I work with. I love them all. But anyway, shout out to Jen at Fox Chase Cancer Center. But this particular day, I was in the room, and I was already cranky. I already was in a bad mood. But like I said, sometimes the arguments that I got into was because of my own behavior. So back when I was a younger scrub, I was waiting for them jokers to say something so I could snap at them. That's not right, but that's how I was back then, because I think back then I didn't really even feel like I belonged. When you start feeling like you belong, you don't behave in immature ways. You just be cool. Like nowadays, I don't say nothing. I don't argue with surgeons. I'm cool with every surgeon I've met for years since back then, since I've learned the lesson that I learned from Samir that day. But anyway, I'm sorry, I digress. But that particular day, we were doing a free flap or something like that. I was already cranky, and Samir said something to me, and I don't remember exactly what he said, But I basically snapped on him and said, I don't like the way you talking to me. Who you think you talking to? And what's I don't know what's up. You think you could talk to anybody any way you want around here, because at the time I think he was people were afraid of him because of how he treated people. And again, if I'm remembering this wrong, Samir, forgive me, but I'm just going back off of what I remember in those times. But so I was kind of always waiting for him to say something stupid to me or say something that I felt was stupid. So I kind of snapped at him, and what he said to me that day resonated with me and made me change my approach. But he looked at me and he said, John, I understand that you have a tough job, but I also have a tough job. I not only have to deal with you, I have to deal with taking care of this patient in a way that's going to get them out of here safely with great outcomes. That's a lot of pressure and that's a lot of stress. I not only have to do that, I then have to go out to their family members and tell them all the things that I did. I have to tell them if something went wrong. I have to tell them if the outcome isn't great. That's more pressure. I'm under a tremendous amount of pressure every day. Not only do I have this patient, then I have another patient that I have to do after this patient. Then I have to go to the office. I have to deal with paperwork. I have to deal with all these different personalities. You think that it's just, hey, I'm coming in here and I'm doing this. You don't see all the things that I go through in the background. I don't want to have to come in here and argue with you because you're in a bad mood. I have enough on my plate. I go through enough. He instantly tore out his scrub, he broke scrub, and he left. I stood there and thinking to myself, damn. Even in that moment, I still was a little upset or whatever because we were going back and forth. It was more said before that, but ultimately, he came back in, he shook my hand, he scrubbed back in, he shook my hand and said, I value you as a teammate. And I said, I apologize. I'm sorry about snapping at you. We went on to have a great case, and the patient went on to have a great outcome. He doesn't know that he impacted me in such a powerful way because that made me look at them with more empathy. It made me stop looking at myself like waiting for people to say something to me. To be standoffish, it's not right. It's not righteous and good behavior. They go through a lot. They have a lot on their plate. So over the years, I would be in rooms and I would be in situations, and these guys would be going through hell and a lot of bad things. So I'm more empathetic towards them now, so things don't bother me anymore. Because I understand he's upset because the screw broke. I understand because X-ray ain't in the room when we need them. I understand. I'm more understanding now. When they go too far, if they say too many things that's out of pocket, I'll tell them like, yo, back up, bro. At some point, it's too much. But all in all, I haven't had any arguments because how I look at them now because of that one incident. So again, shout out to Samir, man. I hope you come have an opportunity to come sit down with and talk to me on this podcast so you could tell the story from your point of view, even if you even remember it. But I'm sure you had situations where you got into things with other people on the surgical field that you could talk to and shine a light on to for us from a surgeon's point of view, or any surgeon who would want to come on. I would love to get your input on that. But one of the reasons I wanted to answer that question last is because I also want to emphasize why I have very little fear of anybody on the surgical field or even in life. Because I told you guys that I've been through a lot of traumatic experiences. I've seen a lot. I've done a lot, and I've dealt with monsters. I've dealt with monsters. I was in prison and I've seen some nasty things. I was in the underbelly of Philadelphia nightlife. I mean, I was in after hour clubs. I did a lot of things. I've seen a lot of things. I've seen violent things, and I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to take you back down memory lane. I had just got home from prison. I think I had just started working at Osteopathic Hospital on City Line Avenue, and I was still living with my mother on Rittenhouse Street. But I had already started walking with my dark passenger. I had already started down the road to mental health and to struggling with my life. Let me be clear that in the beginning of all of that stuff, I had fun. The fun stops when you want to stop and you can't. When the addictions and the mental health got such a hold on you that you can't. Like I said, that devil used to whisper into my heart. So he would have me out there. But in the beginning, when I thought, I thought I was just drinking and having fun. I was meeting a lot of girls. I was doing a lot of things. And I had a lot of, I have a lot of great memories too. So please don't get it twisted and think of that. I had some horrible life. And maybe I'll come off as that. And I apologize for that because in between all the traumas and the tragedies, I had children. I had a life, you know what I'm saying? And I always had a double life. But anyway, this particular night, I was at my mother's house and I slept on the third floor, and I think my sister Shepard was on the other floor right before she moved to Colorado. My parents had the room, so I had to go by their room to go up to my third floor. And even back then, even as a grown man, I was scared of my mother. And when I say scared, I mean just in a respectful way. She didn't like certain things. She didn't want me drinking and partying in her house. She didn't want me having sex in her house. She said she didn't run a whorehouse. Don't bring any women into her house. So I would sneak, women into her house when I was younger, and I always had a fear that she would catch me because, oh Lord. But anyway, so this particular day, I was home and I had some beer and stuff up on the third floor, and I was antsy. It was like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was just so I decided to sneak out. So I snuck out. I'm a grown man. I'm sneaking out again because I didn't want my mother to catch me. But so I lived on Rittenhouse Street in Germantown, on the west side. So our street borders off of Vernon Park. This park in Germantown, and anybody from Germantown who knows this park, they knows how dark and treacherous it is, especially back then. It's a lot better now. It's well lit now. It's beautiful, well kept now. But back then, it was shady. So I remember I was going in. I had whatever I was doing at the time. I was drinking and whatever else I was into at that time. I was sitting on a bench. It was dark. And this guy I knew walked up. Now, this guy, I've known him for years, and I know how evil he is. He wasn't evil to me, but I knew how his reputation, he was just a terror. He was a mess. He was just terrorizing people. And I heard stories. I didn't really know because I didn't hang out with him. We just knew each other. I was really close friends with his cousin. I don't want to mention his cousin's name because then people probably could fit it together. But I was really good friends with his cousin. But this particular night, I was sitting on a bench and he came up out of nowhere. It almost like he just materialized. Again, I'm telling you, this guy was a fucking demon. He was a mess. So we were talking about nothing. I was drinking or whatever. He had his thing or whatever. He was drinking and doing whatever he was doing. And he asked me that I want some, but I don't drink with demons. Even back then, I had core values and stuff like that. I didn't mind talking to him or whatever, but I didn't break bread with people I ain't really care for. That's just how I was. I don't talk to people. I don't entertain people I don't like. I just don't fuck with them. So I don't be phony with that. But I'll never forget this. This girl came up and she was really cute, really pretty girl. Again, 3 o'clock in the morning. So it's obvious what she was doing. She propositioned me first and I said, no, I'm good. You know what I'm saying? Because I wasn't really, into that or whatever at that time. So she moved on to him. And whatever they negotiated their deal, whatever. And at the time, like I said, it was really dark. And it was this building off to the side. And at the building is these steps, like a flight of steps, concrete steps that were still outside, but you go out down into a tunnel. So he took her down there. While I'm sitting there, I'm still drinking and doing whatever. And a couple of minutes later, I hear this blood curdling scream. Like it was so bad that I dropped my 40. And I jumped up instantly. And I don't know why. I look back and I always ask myself why. I'm no hero, but it seems like I'm always in these hero situations because I've literally saved like 6 people's lives. And I'll tell you stories about that as the time goes on in these podcasts because they're all true stories. I've literally saved people's lives. And this night I saved this girl life. So I ran down the steps. And when I got down there, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. This guy was much bigger than me, as everybody is, because I'm very small. And he was beating this girl black and blue. He was beating her bloody. She was bleeding. And this happened quick, because I got there quick. He was just punching her and punching her and punching her, and I just seen blood. I still see it to this day, just splashing out of her. So I jumped in between them, and I grabbed him, and me and him start fighting, and I'm screaming on my shoulder, run, run, run. So the girl somehow got around me and he's reaching for her as he's fighting me, and the rage and the hatefulness and the demonic look in his eyes was terrifying to me. I've never seen anything like it, and I've seen monsters. This man was an absolute demon. She ran up the steps and she got away. I've never seen her again in my life. I don't know what happened to her. I still remember her though. If I seen her today, I would remember her. I'll remember her when she first got there, and I remember the terror in her eyes and the blood pouring out of her nose, her mouth, teeth on the ground, and her running up the steps with her jacket falling off because I think it was starting to get cold. But anyway, me and him was rumbling, and I'll never forget. We had each other gripped, and I'm looking at him, and he looking at me, and the look in his eyes, he was a demon, he was a monster. But he stopped. He stopped pulling on me. He stopped looking at me, and I could tell he was looking in my eyes too. And then whatever he seen in his eyes, in my eyes, must have scared him as much as the looks in his eyes scared me. Because he dropped his hands off of my chest. He said, "My fault, Scooty." That's my nickname, Scooty. And he backed up out of the steps. He didn't turn his back on me. He backed up and he disappeared into the night. I'll never forget that story because it was so horrible. One of the most horrible things I've seen in my life. And I've seen some things, I'm trying to tell you. He would have killed that girl. Later on, I heard he probably did kill a few people. The reason why I tell you guys this story is because I've seen some things in my life that nobody can intimidate me or scare me, especially on the surgical field. You can't do that to me. I've seen too much. I've done too much. You know, the horror of that night lives with me. The horrors of what happened at Edmonton when that man lost his mom, his wife, and his baby. Those things, they live with me. They are scars that I'm gonna carry with me for the rest of my life. You know, I still think about that time. I still think about what he did to that girl, and I still think about the fact that a couple of weeks later, I heard that somebody killed him. He had to be killed. He had to be killed because I know from what I've seen in his eyes that he was a killer. He was a monster. This podcast ran a little bit longer than I wanted to, but I hope that it resonated with some people. I hope that you got a lot out of it. I hope that it touched you in a way that'll make you and allow you and teach you and show you that you can reach for more despite whatever you've been through, no matter the circumstances, in and out of healthcare. I hope that some of the tragedies that I told you about, especially the ones inside of healthcare, I hope it shines a light onto what we go through. Just a small light. We go through so much. All of us. I don't care what our roles are. I don't care if you clean the rooms or you take the bodies to the morgue. Everybody that's been in healthcare, that go through healthcare, they've experienced something that hurt them. So have a little grace. Shine a little light on them. Applaud them. That's why I'm always so big on team. I never try to shit on nobody because I understand. So like when something is going wrong in the room, I never say, oh, they did that or they didn't do this, because I understand that some things go on that we don't see. That maybe they missed something because they're going through something. Try to have empathy. And let's keep it savvy. So my next episode will be in the new year. I hope that you guys join me. I hope that I'll have my things down to the point where I have my guests on, so you'll get different views on things. You'll get different insights on things more than just me being a soloist. But I enjoyed my 3 episodes with you guys. I enjoyed Angels and Demons. I hope that you know that all the things that I tell you are the truth as I remember it. And I hope that they resonate with you in a positive way to lead you to a better life and to lead you to greater things, because ultimately what I really want out of this podcast is to be an example, to be an impactful person, to show people that with right behavior, with growth, you got to learn, you want to make mistakes through the years, but with growth, you can have the life that you want. All right? Cool. We're going to keep it savvy. All right? Take care.